All right, and this should be the most popular panel of the whole day because we're talking about money.
It's always great being the last.
We're going to end the day with federal funding, and you heard a lot about that today. I want to tie a bow with just a couple of introductory comments. Federal funding can be the catalyst for private investment. And I think you heard about that today with hydrogen hubs and the opportunities that that's going to create. So I promise we're going to get you out of here on time. This has been an amazing conference, and it's been an amazing group of individuals that are clearly moving the state forward. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Liz Vitullo. I have the great pleasure of serving at West Virginia University as Assistant Vice President for Economic Innovation and the Assistant Dean for Strategic Initiatives at the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. And for anyone in the audience that works with federal funding, you know that we are in an unprecedented time. The amount of federal funds that are available are incredible. And the IWG, the 2-year anniversary, the recap yesterday, couldn't have teed up this panel better when they were talking about just the funds that have been made available, especially for coal communities where we live. Today, our esteemed panel is going to explore these opportunities for our state, opportunities related to energy, and resources available to pursue these funds. But we all know it's not, writing a grant it's not as easy as it sounds, right, Sarah?
Right.
And so, yes, there are funds out there, but how? Mrs. Manchin's smiling at me because she knows this. Just because the funds are there doesn't mean that it's going to be handed over. A lot of things have to be put in place. Coalitions need to be built. Strong narratives, strong letters of support, grant management systems. There is a lot to this. And so we're going to explore a little bit about this. We could spend the whole day on federal funding, so I would invite you to reach out to this panel after the fact. So our esteemed panel, Dr. Sam Taylor, who is the Assistant Director of Strategic Partnership at Technologies at WVU's Energy Institute. Sam's superpower, I always say this, he can explain the most difficult technical energy concepts in cartoon characters. I promise you. This is how I learned about rare earths. And then, so he's amazing. Sara Payne Scarbro, she's my partner in crime, and you'll hear about an initiative that we've got working together. But she's the Associate Vice President for Government Relations at Marshall University and the Principal Investigator for the West Virginia Grant Resource Center. The two university presidents talked about Universities United. Sarah is one of the forces behind that and is really reaching across the state to make amazing things happen. And then Ryan Thorn, appointed by President Biden to serve as the State Director for the USDA Rural Development. And so thank you so much for all three of you being here and all the work that you do. Full bios are in our program. But I'm going to start with Dr. Taylor here. So given your role at the Energy Institute and the Institute's focus on innovative energy and environmental solutions benefiting West Virginia, I'd love to get your take on what opportunities do you see on the horizon for the state. I know we talked a lot about hydrogen hubs, so that's not your answer.
Okay.
Because that one was given. No, I'm kidding. Please talk about that.
Let's go to joke. Ask me about hydrogen hubs.
Yes. So how do we position ourselves to leverage these opportunities, especially in terms of building coalitions across the state? Because you have such a wide variety in our audience.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's great to be here with all of y'all today. The diversity here is great. Usually I'm hanging out in more engineering type rooms, talking very specific technology
Hanging with
stuff.
the cool kids right now.
This has been fun. It's been a great group today. I'd love to thank you and Scott and Donna and everybody for pulling us together and for including us in this. At the Energy Institute, you kind of hit some of our big strategic vision is we're trying to pull together partners external to the university that leverage what we're good at WVU to drive impact in the state. Like the strategic partnerships and technologies is as linear as that sounds. Like, who do we have to partner with to get something done in the real world, and what the heck are the technologies to do that? The question about what's the landscape, again, we don't have time today, and I know we're the last panel, and I know it's nice outside, so I'll try to be quick on that. But it's an enormous technology space. It's a daunting technology space. We talked hydrogen this morning. You heard about, small nuclear reactors, modular nuclear reactors today. Solar, wind, we've got a nascent program in geothermal. There were huge announcements yesterday in rare earths and critical mineral recovery. I mean, it's a massive space, and every single thing I just mentioned is West Virginia applicable. None of these things miss the state. These are all things that we think we can do here, and we've been trying to drive impacts in the places where we can have impact. We're not going to deploy $2 billion of hydrogen hub money through the university, but we can think about the policies, the regulatory impacts, R&D development that needs done to make that stuff real in the real world. So that's, thinking about the technology space is massive. And then separately, and again, we've heard a lot of stuff today on the funding. I joked a couple weeks ago at a conference that it's almost terrifying how much opportunity there is out there. Because I think, and we heard it from some of the panelists today, that it feels like we have to go now. We have to capture everything now because we don't know if we're going to get another bite at it. Yeah. And in the space, we have to be strategic in thinking about what we're going to take shots at, where we're going to put our investments, because staffing, headcount, resources, hours in the day are limited. We have to put together great teams that can execute and execute quickly. So I'll mention a few things specific to our neighborhood, and I wanted to mention in particular for today. There's the what they call the 40209 energy manufacturing recycling tax credit and program through DOE that is all focused at energy communities. That whole program is focused at how can you do things in energy communities, how can we repurpose facilities to do what it says, clean energy manufacturing and recycling. We've had a lot of interest through the state, through the good folks at the Commerce Office have come to talk to us on a few occasions about technology development there, but that is one we have to pay attention to. It's aimed for us. There were some announcements in the last few days with the Interagency Working Group on increased tax incentives that are targeted right at us to attract and deploy these technologies. Some folks that I'm working with through the Build Back Better program for the Act Now Coalition, there was an announcement on, I'm going to get the number wrong, $450 million in clean energy deployments on mine lands that we're, we'll say, extremely interested in and trying to understand how we do that. And again, that kind of money, WVU is not going to go install 50 megawatts of solar panels, but we can do a lot in trying to identify partners, identify sites, knock down regulatory barriers, and find the right people to put a project together, and that's what we do.
You kind of stole my thunder on the second question there, Sam, but so maybe I'll dig in a little bit more, because I think it was last year we heard about the Act Now Coalition and the WVU component of that. Well, it was multiple components, but around sustainable mine lands.
Yeah.
And so, that's really innovation, like rethinking what we're doing. So can you remind the audience a little bit about the Sustainable Mine Lands Initiative and maybe just give us a little update on that?
A smidgen on that? Okay. So that is one of 8 projects in the larger Act Now program. So we're just one of 8 programs within that. But our focus is, can we identify better future reuses of mine lands? And we mean that as broad as that sentence. So both abandoned mine land, former mine land, stuff that's active today and maybe coming to the end of their permits, these kinds of things. What can we deploy? What can we discover in these sites that can lead us to new development pathways? That's an enormous coalition across campus and external to campus, where we're looking to screen spatially for sites. We've got a lot of partnerships through the Sustainable Land Use and Law Clinic, the WVU Davis College, the Natural Resource Analysis Center. I'm going to miss all of our partners, even though I talk to them every day. The Bridge Science and Technology Policy Initiative, all looking at pieces of this in terms of how do I find a site, how do I work with the landowner, how do I identify the technology we can deploy, how, after we've had all that done, what are the permitting and regulatory barriers to that? We're working on some things around a policy sandbox to identify where perhaps there are regulatory inefficiencies, and everybody panics when I say that. We're not trying to skirt laws, but it's like if we understand this is inefficient, can we work with agencies, can we work with our partners to deploy more quickly, again, recognizing the time on these things. And so we're in the early days of that, and we've been working actually pretty diligently. We just hired a director who's hanging somewhere around in the room here. There he goes. Do it again, Brady.
So if you want to learn more, that is your guy back there. So we've affectionately called it the Zillow of Minelands.
That's correct.
And that's not official. We realize Zillow
Trademark.
is, yes. But talk about where federal funding can support some innovation and rethinking the deployment of, maybe at one time was a liability and what we can turn it into.
And again, all these programs and incentives we've been talking about are directly applicable. Now, the thing is, we have to find commercial partners. Again,
Yes.
we have to find industrial partners, small business partners, large business partners that would be willing to go and help us through this process, through the site planning, through permitting, environmental compliance, through the actual deployment of whatever the technology might be. And again, within our portfolio, some things we're screening for are geothermal, solar deployment. We're also looking at opportunities for trails and outdoor recreation, commercial construction, residential construction in certain places. So it's going to require partners. Again, we're not home builders, and we are occasionally trail builders, I guess.
Trail builders.
But yeah, and all of these programs, all of those technology pathways have federal support available to them today.
A lot of follow-on funding. Yes.
A lot of follow-on funding.
So I'm going to shift to Ryan, and so Ryan, USD does such just incredible work to address the needs of our state, and I really want to applaud your recent initiative. So I invite you to tell the audience a little bit about the Rural Partners Network and what you're trying to achieve with that, because I think this is real. Bringing resources together, building coalitions. So please go into more detail about it.
Sure. Thanks, Liz, and thank you to the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative, Donna and the board, for hosting this event for 5 years now. It's incredible, and it's a privilege to share the stage today with so many innovative and visionary leaders. And just let me say that it's quite an honor to serve West Virginia on behalf of President Biden and Secretary Vilsack at the USDA Rural Development. So our Rural Partners Network, or RPN, it was launched about a year ago, and it's the Biden administration's key initiative to assist rural communities identify funding, identify barriers that can help create jobs, build infrastructure, diversify their economies, and create resilient communities across America. RPN is an all-of-government approach. There's more than 20 departments and commissions, including the Appalachian Regional Commission, who is led by a passionate advocate for Appalachia and West Virginia. and from the Department of Commerce to the Department of Transportation, and I noticed Diego and Leslie with the U.S. Commercial Service through Commerce are here today too. So it's an all-of-government approach from these 20-plus departments, the hundreds of agencies within those departments, on how we can meet stakeholders and communities in their backyards, where they're at, and define their priorities on their own terms. And so today, RPN operates in 36 communities across 10 states and 1 territory, Puerto Rico. In West Virginia, we have 2 community networks. Those 2 community networks represent 20 counties, 70 municipalities, and more than 360,000 residents. And so those 2 community networks are the Pioneer Network, hosted by Glenville State University, and I know our friends from Glenville are here today. I see Dave Hutchins and Leslie back there. And so that network is in sort of the central portion of our state. It's 8 counties, includes Braxton, Gilmer, Calhoun, sort of that region. And we have our Southern West Virginia network, which is 12 counties from Wayne all the way over into Raleigh, Monroe, Mercer counties, and that is being led by the West Virginia Community Development Hub. And so how does RPN benefit those communities within the selected networks? And it's mainly by providing that front door, if you will, into those 20-plus federal departments and commissions. And so each of those departments or agencies has what's called a federal desk officer. And their primary goal is to be available, accessible to those communities that have been selected as a Rural Partners Network community. And so you don't have to bounce around 30 different individuals to get the resources or the information that you need. And at USD, I always say at rural development, we're advocates for, investors in, and partners to rural communities, and the people, businesses, and organizations within those communities. And so it only makes sense that we were tasked by the administration to manage, implement, and coordinate this initiative across the country. And so we provide these networks with boots on the ground support, technical assistance support, identifying resources, helping bring down barriers. And I will say a quick shout out to Kaylee Kyle, who's in the audience. She is leading our RPN effort here in West Virginia. But ultimately, we want to work with our rural communities to focus on projects that create new opportunities from the bottom up and allow them to not only survive, but thrive. And so more information on RPN can be found at rural.gov. And real quick, what do you want me to speak on IWG at all?
Yeah, would you say?
Sure. I know a lot has been said already today on the Interagency Working Group for Coal and Power Plant Communities. But I will say that the Inflation Reduction Act has really supercharged those activities. As Sam mentioned, they sort of commemorated the 2-year anniversary at the White House yesterday to mark the occasion. And West Virginia has 4 or 5 of the 25 priority communities that the administration identified to support. And that's 41 counties. So pretty much the majority of West Virginia is a priority under IWG. And over the last 2 years, more than $16 billion has been awarded across the country just to those priority communities. And I will say, I'll just touch on what's called the rapid response teams. And this is really the boots on the ground for IWG within these communities. And I know there's been a few of these rapid response teams implemented already across the country, but in the next couple weeks or months, I think you'll hear a lot more about the rapid response teams here in West Virginia. But I will say the Interagency Working Group, it includes 11 departments, which is not the more than 20 of RPN. But I think we'll really see a lot more boots on the ground work and effort from IWG here in West Virginia in the coming months.
The other thing we really heard a lot about today was community engagement, which I am just thrilled that this has become an emphasis in providing some of this funding, that these communities are going to see the benefits of the research, of the innovation, of the industries that are placed there. And I think RPN really speaks to that because it's kind of a bottom-up approach from, ground up. But, Ryan and to the other two panelists, what are some best practices in community engagement that you can share with this group? Because it's such a mixture of, we have to have industry, government, education, nonprofits at the table to really make it meaningful. So what would you advise on best practices in this space?
I would say communication and collaboration is key. You know what your neighbors are doing, know what the other organizations across the state or your neighboring communities are doing. Federal research, as much as of federal resources that are out there right now, they're still finite. Right. They're limited. And so let's not repeat effort, let's not duplicate effort. Let's work together to bring certain projects to fruition. And I will say everything's a project, from doing the laundry to trying to get out of the doghouse on Sunday for watching too much golf this week with your significant other. It's a project. From developing a workforce development plan with a company and a community college, everything's a project, and you have to look at it like that. And so I have a bunch of keywords. Whenever you think projects, think of the problem you're trying to address. Think of the purpose, the planning, the people, the place, the partners, the potential, the public and private financing, the policies, the politics, and the persistence. You have to think about all those P's within a project to really make a difference. And one point I will make, I cannot stress this enough, when you're working on those projects, when you identify a grant program to go after, don't try to make the grant program fit your project. Tailor your project to fit the grant program, because it literally takes an act of Congress to change some of those grant programs.
Yesterday at the White House briefing, those P's were perfect, and I think I'm stealing someone's line. Projects are people, and and I think that really boils it down to what you need to think about with community engagement. So, Sarah, so we've heard so much about the federal funding that is available, and we all know how easy it is to get a grant, right? No, it's not. And so, Sarah, can you tell us, you've done so much work with communities, especially in the southern part of the state, nonprofits, state and local government. You have a great pulse on the needs of, what we need in our communities. From your perspective, what are some of the barriers to pursuing federal funding, and what can we do as a state to overcome that?
I think the major barrier to federal funding is the grant application itself. and how many of you have written a grant?
Wow.
Well, that's really great. So you understand, but how many are you, your title is grant writer? Okay, we got one. 2. So as you write grants, we're all very busy, right? We all wear many hats: mother, driver, fixer, cook, whatever. And I find myself, when I write a grant, it's at midnight in my bed, and I've got everything on my bed, just trying to bring up things. And that's the truth of it, is that when you think about grant writing, you have to have a conversation about capacity. And studies show that basically out of every 10 grants, 3 are successful. So you can be the best grant writer, but you're still not going to get it over the edge every single time. So when I say writing the grant, it's the capacity within the grant, and then it's the aspects of the grant writing process. We have pre-award, we have post-award. When you look at pre-award, you have to, okay, do I have enough partners? Are they the right partners? Do I have letters of support that are impactful, that really make a difference, and they're just not a template repeated over and over? Can I meet the deadline? Because a lot, especially in Appalachia, we don't hear about the opportunities until you maybe have 3 or 4 weeks lead time. And you're like, man, I have the great project, but I just don't know if I can get it over. But the biggest, we did a survey 2 years ago, and we sent them, and I know capacity is an issue because of this. I had 72 hours to do the survey. We sent it out statewide. We received 350 respondents within 3 days, just like that. And it was about grant capacity, grant writing capacity. And when asked the questions, they were like, I'm like, how many do you have a full-time grant writer on staff? And 80% said no. And I said, if we get creating this grant center concept, how many would use a free service of the Grant Center? And 77% said, absolutely, I'd be very much interested. So the fact that capacity raise is number one, and then shortly after capacity is what we're not a stranger to this either, but it's identifying those matching funds for your project. Whether it's 20%, 10%, 50%, whatever it is, if you're a small community or a nonprofit and you really can solve the problem, it's just identifying and being creative of your in-kind match, your cash match, and identifying those critical partners that can get you over the hump on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you teed yourself perfect for my next question on the theme of golf there. You mentioned the Grant Center. And I know that this is near and dear to both our hearts. So tell the audience about the Grant Center and some of the resources that are available free of charge. She'll repeat this, but free of charge. But so please share some information about that.
Well, this is a brainchild of Liz and I, and we were at the Greenbrier, and we had all this. The federal governments have done their job. They've made monies available. There's opportunity. Right? We'll never see this time in our lifetimes. I mean, the amount of money, the amount of opportunity. So the state has dived in their commitment on assisting, and the coal-fill facilitation group in the legislature and the work they've done, and they identified grant writing capacity as an issue in their official report. And but Liz and I have been working on this concept. We have a team. Before I forget, we have handouts, all of our information. Brittany Bruce is in the back. Brittany, please stand up. Her nickname is Elmer because she is Elmer's glue. She holds us all together. And so please see Brittany before you leave. But the Grant Center is a free resource, and it's innovative because it brings WVU and Marshall together. Now, I know, there's not too many spring chickens in this room, so we all know that WVU and Marshall's been working together for a long time. This feels different. This is different. And why? We have the right players at the right time, the right leaders, and I'm sorry, but you're not gonna find anybody more passionate about West Virginia than myself. And I'm here to help my state. And I love my state. I know I want for us to reach our potential. And Liz feels the exact same way. And our team, it's heavily women. I'm not saying anything, I'm not gonna get into that conversation, but the women we have a great team of women workers, and thank you. And they're all passionate about West Virginia. And that's the tie that bonds us, and that's why this project is different. We share administrative support between Marshall and WVU. We collectively have grant writers. We will edit, we will write, we will do project management, we will do project development, we will make connections for you, we will give you letters of support templates, we will do what it takes to serve you, and it's free.
And I want to shout out just to ARC. This was we were recipients of a power grant to set up this grant resource center, so we're so appreciative. And a shout out to Mike Rainey. I know, Mike, you've gotten so many shout outs. You just might be tired of it today. But the work through the Build Back Better and some of the other groundwork that you helped us with, and the support from the state level has been instrumental. But the mission of the Grant Center is to bring as much federal funding and private funding into the state as possible. And the Grant Center is focused on economic development and economic prosperity. So if you have a project that fits under that umbrella, we want to assist. And so we've got a very developed website. There's an intake form. Again, it's free. I think we've said it 4 times, maybe 5 times. And even if you're a grant writer, we want to work with you too, whether it's providing, data to support your proposal. If you need another set of eyes, technical review, that's what we're trying to do. So very excited about the Grant Resource Center. Hopefully next year we're reporting on the millions and millions of dollars and the great initiatives that are coming.
Hey, we already have 36 applicants in the queue. About 12 of them are active. We are writing their grants or helping and assisting in some way. And this is that innovative approach that, because of the leadership of the ARC and the state and the legislature passed, so thank you, Delegate Statler, I see him. But the legislature passed a $500,000 match for the Grant Center in this last legislative session. We're building an ecosystem in West Virginia, and it's so exciting.
So on the theme of federal funding, one thing about me is I'm incredibly competitive, and I'm going to do something that none of the other panelists did today, and I'm going to end just a few minutes early. So I'm going to ask, yep, I'm going to be popular. I'm going to ask one final question of our panelists, and then we will open it up for questions if there are any. But I'll ask each of you, given your immense work in this space, give me 1 or 2 best practices federal funding. So whether that's coalition building, developing the project, writing an effective proposal, budgets, grant management, just, let's go down the line.
I mean, mine's so basic, it's crazy. It's being honest, earnest, and transparent with folks you're trying to partner with.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I mean, that's so foundational. All the work we do is relationship driven. West Virginia is a small state. Folks got to decide if they like you in a lot of cases to decide they want to work with you. So, so you have to lean into that and recognize that's a factor of doing work here.
Ryan?
Well, I just want to make one point. I completely blanked on this earlier, but it seems like a lifetime, but I've been involved in community and economic development for about 6 years now. And through that 6 years, what folks identified as barriers to federal funding was they don't know what they don't know, being aware of the resources, actually putting pen to paper or fingertips to keypad to actually write the grant, and to have match support. And so everything is just coming together, and I can't thank the legislature and the governor enough for the Economic Enhancement Grant Fund through the Development Authority. That will provide the much-needed match that our local communities don't have. And my tip was what I said earlier: make your program fit the grant program, not the other way around. And communication and collaboration.
Sarah?
He took one of mine. I have 5. I'll go quickly. I'll channel my inner boss, Brad Smith. Fall in love with the problem, not your solution. So look at it from different perspectives, and maybe that will lead you to not have to Ryan's point, put that square peg in that round hole in that application. You want to find the right application, the right funding source that works. Remember, your application has your name on it. It has your organization, so it's your reputation. So think about before you submit, are you really proud of that work? Because you might not think reviewers notice, but they do notice. And so show up. All these workshops, ARC is fantastic about offering workshops for this and that, and the West Virginia Community Development Hub, and the West Virginia Grant Centers. We have free workshops. We'll do a whole segment on letters of support, what they need to look like, what they shouldn't look like. Show up to those. That's half the battle, because you don't know what you don't know. And you apply for a grant, you're not successful. It's not game over. Yeah. There is a second generation to grants. And so another resource that the West Virginia Community or the West Virginia Grant Resource Centers offers is that we want to see your second generation grants. Okay, you applied to EDA, you weren't successful, bring it to us. Maybe there's another funding source ready to go. We can make some tweaks, we can add a couple partners, we can identify some additional match, and you've got a stronger proposal. So those are mine.
Yeah.
Love it. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if there are any. Yes. I don't know if there's a microphone that could be shared, or do you want to try to yell it out? Oh, we got it.
Hi, this question is for Ryan. It pertains to their rapid response teams. In yesterday's announcement, they said that there were 3 previous teams, one in the Four Corners, one in Wyoming, one in Illinois, and they all had a national lab that was working with them. If West Virginia gets a response team, will we have a national lab assigned to us, or will we have to go find one? And also, before you answer that question, I noticed Pennsylvania is slated for one. Will these 2 teams be able to work across boundaries to work collaboratively?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak for Brian Anderson or Briggs White, but I would assume that a national lab would participate in a West Virginia rapid response team. There will be one in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, likely one in Kentucky. And so work doesn't stop at borders. So I envision that these rapid response teams will definitely coordinate and work together throughout our Appalachian region.
Last question. Anyone? Yes. Oh.
Thank you for the great insight. And so I'm looking at projects that cover rare earth metals and mine reclamation. And so one, it's great to hear about the Grant Center. Congratulations on that. I used to work for a company that worked with a lot of government contractors, prime subs, so I know that effort, and I know these people that spent late nights writing these proposals. In looking at state and federal, One of the things that I'm tasked with is try to prioritize and figure out that kind of priority. If I'm looking at some state money, because we've had these recent announcements about mine reclamation, I'm trying to kind of figure out how to make it fit both, right? Can I prioritize state and federal money, or is the timeline kind of shorter on one versus the other? Because I don't want to compromise the integrity of the project, because like you say, you got to be passionate about it, and I am. But I would like to kind of figure out how you can best, understand the state and federal process to maybe tap into both. Is that possible, and how would we go about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because you're right, there is federal and state, and you strive for it to be complementary and holistic, if you will. I invite you to contact the Grant Center and we could try to do special workshops on just that. And then we can work with Mike's group, DEP, the governor's office, and set up something and then, kudos to the governor's office too, because they hired Melissa Decker, who's stationed in Washington, and she has her thumb on the pulse for federal grants opportunities. And Melissa sends us correspondence once a week. And so I think there's a lot of synergy there, and I'd be happy to work with you on that. Thank you.
So, go ahead. We'll squeeze one more in.
We're popular, Liz.
Yes, Tina Telly's.
Thank you, Jorge Atiles, WVU Extension. Sarah, we're going to become very good friends. So we'll talk some more because we have a role to play in every single county, helping communities build that capacity. One of the great things I heard you say is how you can actually help people, pre-award. I wonder when we're going to be able to address the post-award issue, because sometimes, wow, we got the grant. Oh, we got the grant.
Exactly.
And then what do we do?
You're exactly. And so really, I'm so glad you brought that up, because, post-award is another beast of this, process. And so it's definitely on our radar right now. I don't know if Chris is still here, Chris Chow's, Region 2 Planning and Development Council. Your planning and development councils offer some support. Your universities, especially research institutions, offer some support in that post-award compliance factor. Also, the community foundations, they can provide some support. But we are looking at as we build this ecosystem and we leverage the resources from USDA and the Rural Partners Network and the state and ARC, and it's like a puzzle, right? We're putting these puzzle pieces together. Post-award's got to be a part of the conversation. We felt we needed to go pre-award first because we have the opportunity with the money. We got to get the money in the state. But we're not going to leave our applicants empty-handed. If they need support on the back end, we have enough tools in the toolbox. I think we could piecemeal it, but I think that it's a natural phase 2 of the West Virginia Grant Resource Center. I'll just put that plug out there.
Well, I want to thank our panel and just tie a few things together. Clearly we are in an unprecedented time, especially as we look at the energy landscape of the state and the opportunities for the state. We've got the people, we've got the industry, we've got the passion, we have the funds, and just to quote Sam here, I think it's go time. And so I think that's our call to action. So please consider us a resource if there's anything we can do to help, especially the Grant Resource Center. I know Ryan's got a whole host of resources there as well. So thank you for your attention, and I'll pass on the mic to our closing statement. So thank you.